I'm outside 7 Mile Casino right now. Hopefully the action's good. I called a little earlier and they don't allow filming, so I'll catch up with you after the session. I'm back. It's now 1:20 in the morning. I played a good 3.5 hour session, and it's officially Mother's Day Sunday, so happy Mother's Day. We get things started with, I get pocket kings. I've folded every single hand up to this point, getting a few blinds going away, and I see 2 limps ahead of me. The first limp seems like a very action player, and then the second one definitely seems like he overestimates hands. He called a raise from early position with ace-9 offsuit, and then he also limped from early position with king-10 offsuit, and then called a raise. So he seems to like to play those big Broadway offsuit hands, and those will be a huge portion of his range when he does this. I put in a raise to 20, pretty big, but I expect him to call, and they both do. The flops queen 9-7 rainbow. They check to me. I put a pretty big bet out there, 45, hoping to get value from a queen or some straight draws. The guy that overestimate hands calls. And then the turn's a 5 of clubs, so there's a flush draw on board now. He checks. The 5 also makes 8-6 possible, but that's really the only hand I'm too worried about at this point. I bet 110. He thinks for a while and then calls. So I don't have much money left, and I feel pretty comfortable he has some type of queen, queen jack, queen 10, queen king, something like that, and I'm not too worried about being beat right now. The river's a blank. He says he has to put me all in. I quickly call, and I wait a good 20 seconds waiting for him to show. He flips over king queen. I beat that, and I take a big pot right off the get-go. All right, in this next hand, I have pocket 8s in late position, a few limps, and then a very short stack raises to 6. So right here, I have 2 choices. I could either raise and plan to get it all in, and this guy just has lost a few pots, so I don't see him folding, so I won't have much fold equity at all, I don't think. Or I can call, go in a big multi-way pot, and hopefully hit a set and stack somebody. My thinking was pocket 8s doesn't do that well against really any range, so I decided just to call to play a big multi-way pot in position. We hit a flop with an ace. I end up getting out of the hand. And now I'm going to leave it up to future Noah to see what the better expected value play was, to either call or to raise and just get it all in against that villain's range. And then future Noah will also go over the rest of the hands. All right, this is future Noah in the lab, and I'm going to give an approximate expected value of raising. And this isn't an exact calculation, since we might get action from behind us of either a call or a re-raise. And there is a small chance that the original raiser might fold, but I think by far the most likely would be we would raise and we'd get all in only against the original raiser. So in order to calculate that, we need to have our estimated equity in the hand. So for that, all we need is to give villain a range of hands. So I think his high pairs would raise bigger. I think his raise signals something like a middling hand that is decent, but not too good to raise bigger, or not weak where he would just limp along behind. I think that range would be something like middling pairs, decent broadways that aren't too good like ace-king and ace-queen, and maybe a few more suited broadways. I think he would also do it with suited aces. And you saw he had ace-3 suited, so he would for sure do it with all those. And I think that's a good enough start. So our equity in the hand is about 56.1%. So if we put that into our calculation, we would have 56.1 times the pot of 17 plus the villain stack of 35 minus the rake of 5. And then we would subtract the times we lose, which would be 43.9% times 41, which would be our raise if we were to put the villain all in. That equals $8.37 in green. So this would be a profitable play. It's just a question of if we call and see a multi-way pot, would our expected value be higher than this number? Pretty hard to get near an exact number on this, but as an estimate, I do think it'd be higher than this because many of the players in the hand had very deep stacks, and we'd play this hand in absolute position, so we'd be the last one to act with a hand that plays very well in a multi-way pot. and if we hit an 8, we'll have a really good chance to stack at least one opponent. So I do think calling is better, but I'm still not sure. Now on to the next hand with ace-queen offsuit in the hijack, where I see a small raise from early position. This player I've already seen raise bigger when he had a premium hand, and I've also seen him fold to a 3-bet when he only raised to this sizing of 10. So he seems to have a pretty clear bet sizing tell. Then the same short stack as in the last hand calls behind him, and the action's on me. Given the first raiser likely doesn't have a premium hand, and the caller also doesn't have a full chip stack to take advantage of while I'm in position, I decided on 3-betting here to 40. The original raiser folds, and the short stack actually ends up calling with only a half-size pot left remaining. Since the pot is so big compared to the effective stack remaining, I will actually never fold here, and would somehow like to push villain off his hand, denying him his equity when I often miss the flop completely. So I plan on pushing all in on basically any flop, with all my hands in this spot actually. The flop comes, I do just that, and the villain folds. No clue what he had, but I'm happy to take the pot down, uncontested. Next, I pick up pocket 7s in the small blind, see a few limps from early position, then a raise from a younger player that has been pretty active, raising multiple times so far. A loose player that has already short bought in 3 times calls behind, as well as a new player on the button. While at the table, I saw this as a better squeezing spot than a calling spot, so I made it 100 to go. The original raiser has been active and has only 133 chips behind, so I won't get blown off the hand, and I feel I can pick up the pot pre-flop a good amount of the time. There's also a lot of dead money out there from the limpers and the callers that even if villain raised and will end up going all in, and I calling of course, with his strong range of something like 9s plus, ace-queen plus, I'm still slightly better than a 2-1 underdog against that range, and it would be a negative $22.69 EV play if I get 0 folds. This is all assuming everybody else folds also, which to me seems like the most likely scenario. The earlier pocket 8s hand where I just called was different because I assumed I was getting 0 folds, and I was in position during that hand, making it much easier to play than this one. Under this given scenario, I would need at least 36.6% folds to make raising pocket 7s a profitable play. Determining whether I would get more than 1 out of 3 folds is all player dependent, and I believe this specific player would fold much more often than that, making me satisfied with my play of squeezing rather than calling. If he folds just 50% of the time, it would be a $8.31 profitable play. The result ended up to be a good one, with everyone folding. The button actually showed ace-queen, and I then showed my pocket 7s. The original raiser then tells me that he had pocket 8s and folded the best hand. Him folding that strong of a hand reassured me that villain folds enough of the time there to make my play of raising a profitable play and better than calling. Here's an easy thought about and played hand. I get pocket aces in the big blind with 3 limps ahead of me and a completion from the small blind. The screen shows min raise, but this live hand creator that I was using kept auto checking my big blind, so I had to make that little raise in order so I could raise it up to 28. In my mind, I made it 25. However, I didn't take back my $3 big blind. I get one of the limpers to call, who is a new player to the table. Then we go heads up to a jack 8-6 2-club flop. I bet pretty big, $45, 3/4 size pot. I feel with this wet of a board I can bet even slightly bigger because the limper would most likely not fold a jack or a draw on this board to any size bet. He called such a big raise pre-flop, I don't think he would fold if he hit some piece of it. I was of course calling if villain shoved and planning to shove myself on most turns, but he quickly folds and my aces don't get cracked. Here's the biggest and most interesting hand of the session. Pay close attention to all the action because I'll leave a poll in the comments of what line you would have taken if you were in my shoes. I have ace-9 of spades in the big blind with an under-the-gun limp from a passive lady, then a raise to 18 from a newer player that I just saw limp in, then call a raise out of position with Queen 8 offsuit. So I already have Queen 8 offsuit pegged as a weak calling station type player. His raise is for sure a strong holding because he seems like a player fully content on limping in to see cheap flops. It's just a question of what he deems as strong. He gets called by a mid-stack and also the short buy-in horribly loose player. I call from the big blind, getting a good price with a hand that can flop big, which is especially good in an expected 5-way pot. Plus I feel I'll be ahead of all the players' ranges except possibly the original raiser. If I hit top pair, it'll be very tricky to play from this worse position, but the flop brings me the nut flush draw, with the king being the non-spade. I check, the lady checks, the original raiser puts a very small bet out there of $25, then the next player to act puts in an almost min raise to $55. Buy-ins on the button gets out of the way, and the action is back to me. I want you to think about the hand and what action you would take in this spot. I personally don't know exactly what to do and need your help. So I'm asking the audience on this one, in the comments section below, using raise, call, or fold, upvote which action you would take now. I'm not sure what the results are, but I'm very interested in seeing what most players would have done in this situation. But let's now see what action I took, as well as my thought process behind my decision. Then after, we can go over and check what would have been the best action to take. The first thing that went through my mind was seeing that I was getting better than 3-1 on an immediate call, and almost 2-1 on an all-in against the raiser, since the bets were so small relative to the pot. The ace-high flush draw will have good enough odds against the raiser's range alone, even if he only raises sets of threes, 2 pairs, or a strong combo draw like top pair with the king-high flush draw. If he adds any other hands like king-queen or queen-10 for a semi-bluff or a smaller flush draw, the odds will drastically increase. I don't see many players raising those hands, especially the weaker draws. But against even a strong range, the nut flush draw, I feel, will be getting the correct odds, like I said earlier. I then thought about, could I get this villain to fold, which I quickly decided was highly unlikely, since most players would never raise, then fold with only $100 left, getting better than 3-1 odds on the flop, if I did happen to go all in. Ace-9 suited here is a type of hand I either want everyone to fold and just pick up the pot, or everyone to call, because I have a nut drawing hand where if I hit a spade, I'll basically win, and if I don't, I lose. That is why I decided on calling and inviting other players into the pot. I thought I'd be a little under 33%, something around 30%, no matter how many people are in the pot. Queen 8 offsuit is the only player I'm too worried about since he has a deeper stack, but he would need a really strong hand to shove his stack in, and I don't think I could give him credit for one just yet. The action does get back to the original preflop raiser, and he indeed ships it all in. The raiser then quickly calls. Alright, that escalated quickly, but now I'm counting all the chips in the pot to see the odds I'm getting on a call now, determining it to be right at 3-1. Pretty sure the original raiser has at least ace-king, aces, or king-jack, and very likely a set with pocket kings or pocket jacks. Then the shorter stack not having the premium preflop starting hands, but still a strong range. I would be getting slightly better than 3-1 odds against those ranges of hands, so I put in the call, hoping for a spade, and not have it pair the board. Queen 8 offshoot shows pocket jacks for a set, and the other villain shows king 3 suited for 2 pair. You see, I'm going to win 28% of the time. So this last call I should have made, even if I saw both of these hands, being actually a $27.25 profitable play. It might have been better to fold to that first raise and get out of the way, because the action will go back to the opener. But before we analyze that, we first got to see if I win this $1,000 pot. Turn bricks an 8 of diamonds, and the river brings a 3 of clubs, actually giving both villains full houses. I also get a nice needling comment from the lady sitting next to me, saying that it was a bad call by me. I asked her earlier if she checked because I didn't see. Then she snapped at me, saying she knows how to play, and I should play my game, and she will play her game. That was not the response I was expecting, but my guess is she has somewhat of a victimhood mentality playing, thinking all these evil men are against her simply because she's a woman. But whatever, I really don't care about that. I just want to find out if she was right or not about my play. So, back to the lab. The first thing I said when I was thinking about the hand was that I'd be getting odds to call even if the first raiser went all in. So let's see if that assumption was actually correct. That raiser would definitely have in his range 2 pairs, since he plays King 3 suited, that hand, but I don't think he'll play Jack 3 suited, but possibly. For now, let's just put in the pocket 3s and then the combo draws, which would be top pair with the king and a flush draw. And since he plays King 3 suited, we'll add maybe half of those King high flush draws. And Queen 10 of spades specifically. So no other worse flush draws, no other straight draws, strict value betting. And then we'll hit calculate. We need 35.9% equity. And we see we're about a percentage short. According to this, we would not be getting correct odds if this villain went all in. But this is really a worst case scenario. If we add just maybe King Queen, it was a small raise, so he could be figuring out where he's at. So if we just add that hand, we see I would be getting the correct odds to call since my equity is a few percentage higher. And this was even though his bet size was smaller, and we'd be getting better odds on just that $55 flat call. So the first assumption seems I might have overestimated my equity in the hand a little bit, but still against that villain's range alone, that play of just calling would have been fine. But now let's add 3 players, and for this assumption, it would be we didn't put the $55 in the middle, and we'd just be needing to call the whole 327. To get those odds correct, we would need 2.27 to 1 odds. So let's give that raiser a very strong range of he could definitely have kings and jacks. King jack for 2 pair. A set of 3s would limp. I think he would do it with aces and ace king. And then maybe king queen of spades. This is really the worst case scenario. I think he would probably call with king 10 of spades. And worse kings he would limp. King queen he might. I don't know, it's really hard to tell, especially queen 8 offsuit. But we'll keep it really tight here and calculate that. We would need about 30.58% equity. And we see we actually do have the equity to continue even if we didn't put that $55 in. So it would actually be a profitable play even if we knew these were the ranges and the original raiser would go all in. But during the hand, I couldn't possibly know that that first raiser would have raised and had such a strong hand. You could have easily had something like ace-queen, ace-jack, king-10, queen-jack, hands like those that were betting small on the flop to see where he's at. So overall, I think the play is actually fine. Based on this analysis, I would actually say it was the correct play, but I'm very open to suggestions or ideas on better ways to play this hand. I think it'll be interesting to see what those poll numbers are, to see what you guys would actually do in this specific situation. I played one more hand to end the session to win a few more dollars and cash out at 507 for a $207 profit. Don't think that hand's worth going over. This one's a perfect one to end on, so this will be the last hand of my episode. So it's about time for you to get out of my laboratory!
Get out of my laboratory! But you're revolting germs and get out of my laboratory! How many times have I told you to stay out of my freaking secret laboratory? I'm not kidding around, I want you